all things. Clinical beings.
Yeah! Welcome back, everybody, to Calling All Beings True Crime Unsolved, or TCU. I'm your host, DJ, here to talk about a little bit of Karen Reed action. You can hear my throat's a little bit messed up. I've been sick the last couple of days. Just moved to Colorado, but we're going to talk a little bit about the case and get into some critical thinking that can be used when analyzing what's going on here. It seems like in certain segments of the population, it's in short supply. So we're going to get into it with you. Jump up in the comments, and if somebody wants a Vine and they want to come up in here and talk to me, more than likely, I will welcome you in, okay? Unless you're just like a crazy person, then I might not. But if you do want to get up in here and you DM me on Twitter, I can send you the link to join the show. So, without further ado, just, a little more ado, okay, before I jump into the case. It's just people that don't know me. My name is obviously DJ. You know that. I am a native of New York, proud graduate of Hendrick Hudson High School, went to college at Dean in Massachusetts, didn't graduate from there, but was a law enforcement major, as were a lot of my teammates in 1985-86 were LE majors, and I'm super duper proud of all of those guys. And we have yearly reunions. My background is Air Force Special Operations. I come from the aviation side of Special Operations. Critical thinking is part and parcel and is mandatory in the type of work that I did. And if you can't think critically, quickly, and analyze things, then you're not going to make it very far. Okay. Now I'll jump into the Karen Reed case. Let me check the comments just to welcome whomever is here. Hi, Tom. How are you, brother? How are you? Tom Finch is in the question. What made me move to Colorado? I'll just say it was work. I can't really get into what I'm doing out here. I apologize about that, but it was work, and thank you. Thank you so much, Tom, for the, by the way, not guilty, and keep up the good work. I appreciate you. So I'm going to step through some things here. Ooh, I borrowed that from a former colleague of mine. I'm going to step through a couple things in the case here, and hopefully you guys can join me in analyzing this so that we can figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Because it really doesn't care. Massachusetts. What's up, Tom? Yeah. I love Massachusetts. Like I said, my teammates from Dean College, all Massachusetts guys, a lot of them were law enforcement because law enforcement was a major that was offered at Dean. And as I said, we started yearly reunions. I missed last year, but we're this year I will get there. And I love Massachusetts because it was one of the best years of my entire life. I'm 57 years old, and one of the best years of my entire life was being at Dean in Massachusetts, and as an 18-year-old and being welcomed into the community. Okay, let us jump into it, friends. Let me know if the mic doesn't sound good, if it's too loud or anything like that. Feel free to let me know, and we'll make adjustments as necessary. Let us start off at the waterfall. Thank goodness for microdots. Microdots is such a G. I love your work, Microdots, if you're out there. And that video provided something for me that I could actually see what was going on. Because if you've been in barroom situations and you've been in a fight before and you've seen fights develop in a barroom situation, you know exactly what was happening there. And that's clear. And I'm going to skip around all this sparring stuff because that is really, it's very helpful and it does help to paint the picture, but it's quite subjective, right? Because a lot of guys do jack around in a bar, and maybe in a joking way, and maybe it has nothing to do with somebody that's getting ready to fight or I mean, I've done that with people in a bar. When I go home to my hometown, I go to an Italian restaurant. There's a great wrestler from our high school that owns the restaurant and is the pizzaiolo there, and he'll clinch with me. He knows that I was not a good wrestler, but I was a jiu-jitsu guy, and he'll clinch with me. He wants to clinch with me, and he'll clinch and just see if he can get an advantage in the clinch. So these things do happen. So I don't want people to think that just Brian and Brian jacking around like that means that this is just in my opinion, and I am open to all the other analysts that look at this that may see something more than I do. But what I'm going to get to is the point, okay? And my boom mic is right here. My boom goes off this way to my left and your right. But here's what I'm going to show you. When Higgy Poo, let me see if I can get. When Higgy Poo does this and points that finger, I'm moving back from the mic so that my finger's there, and is doing like this and nodding his head, and he's actually having to go around, whether it was Chris Albert or Brian Albert. I can't tell these people apart. There's no question in my mind that was a call out for a fight. That was, do you want some of this, mother? You want some of this? That's what hey, what's up, Jerry Lynn? Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you. You're awesome, too. Thank you for dropping in. So if you guys got comments, questions, whatever, and if somebody wants to come on here and you hit me up on Twitter, I will send you the link via DM. In fact, let me check my Twitter real quick, because if someone wants to get me, they're going to have to that's the way to get the link. So let me just check real quick. And I don't have any DMs, so we're good. But if anybody does want to get up in here, that's how you can get up in here if you want to discuss. Okay, so here we are. So we have Brian Higgins, without no doubt in my mind. Do you want some of this, mother effer? Somebody's calling me. They can't do that during the. Somebody was calling me during the show. He's calling me back, but I'll try him later. He seems to call when I'm on air. One of my buddies from Intel. But anyway, all right. So now that we have that, we have that, and then we have backing up, because we need some sort of empirical evidence, was the text. You coming? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And there is no question that if you're smart, that if you are a Brian Albert or you are a Selectman in Chris Albert, I know those are all should be tongue-in-cheek jokes, but they're not. Then thank you so much, Jerry. I appreciate it, man. If that's the case, then you're not going to want to do this in public. Nobody is going to want two behemoths fighting in public at the waterfall and then have the Canton police called, and there's at least three police officers present, that including Brian Higgins, and who knows if there's other police officers there, because I know there's one Canton police officer that spoke with El Jefe, Sean, excuse me, now I'm forgetting his name. I'm thinking of Leopardo 8. Sean McDonough, the great supervisory retired DA agent. And Sean McDonough says that there's a Canton police officer said, if I go out to an establishment, either a bar or a restaurant, and I see Brian Albert, I turn around and leave. And if I'm there and he comes in, I leave. So that should trigger something in your mind as to what some people think about Brian. So now we know there was meant to be a fight. We know that because of the point, which only means one thing. Do you want some of this? You want some of this, pal? That only means one thing in a bar. We know what that means. I don't want to use curse words, but we know what that means. Secondly, we have the text to back it up. And the text to back it up is, are you coming here? So now we know why John wants to go to that house. Because now we have to go into from the mind of Brian Higgins, the guy who wasn't getting the attention from Karen, who had her back to that whole side of the bar. She was facing John. She was facing the other way from where Brian and Chris and so forth were standing. So we have that. Now, John, from his standpoint, is, do I want to show that I'm afraid of this guy? That I'm afraid of this fat mofo, as I'm going to do like Sean McDonough. By the way, next week, when you come on Calling All Beings True Crime Unsolved, 1 week from today at this time, you will have Sean McDonough. You will have Nurse Kim. You will have True Crime Kangaroo. And you'll have Miss Shorty. And the first person who I built this around, Mazza Media, will be here. So next week, we will have this. And what does Tom say? I'm recovering from an ankle injury I had yesterday. Pain kicking in about now. I am 57. Chris Albert. I am too. So I too am 57. Albert seems to try to de-escalate. Yes, I agree with you, Tom. I believe that's what we were looking at right there. I believe that was some sort of a de-escalation attempt. And like I said, you have a selectman. You had at least 3 police officers that we know of. You wouldn't want there to be a fight inside the waterfall with police officers and selectmen present. Okay. So now you have them. Oh, you're going to the after party over at 34 Fairview. And now we have John's motivation to at least go there. Because what he would have had to said to Karen in order for her to sit outside is, I'm going in for a few minutes and I'll be right back. And then obviously she waited out there for 10 minutes, whatever she said it was. She's probably looking and checking her phone and she's probably thinking, F this, I am going home. And he'll call me when he wants a ride. John's motivation was, I'm going to show these guys I'm not scared of this fat ass. That's what he's thinking is, I want to show I'm not scared. There's no question in my mind that that's what happened. Here's where I'm going to go from reasonably objective to subjective. And that's what happened inside. And I'm not going to stray too far down this rabbit hole for the reason that we don't know exactly what happened. But there are some things that critical thinking and common sense can tell us. And here's what I mean by that. If Brian A knows that Brian Higgin wants to fight this guy, and Chris, who I don't think went to the home, knows that, but Brian Albert certainly knows that he's texting this guy, this Boston cop, to come over here. Brian Albert knows that he wants to have some sort of an altercation, right? So if you're Brian Albert and you're a fighter yourself, and I'll challenge that notion. Let me see if I can get both fingers in here in the camera. I will challenge the notion that Brian Albert is an MMA fighter. I have not seen any evidence or see anyone make a claim. I've heard a couple analysts refer to him as an MMA fighter. I don't know that he's an MMA fighter. First of all, I've trained MMA. I was a training partner for an MMA team. I am not an MMA fighter. I would never call myself an MMA fighter, because in order to do that, I would have had to have competed in the cage in MMA fighting, and I didn't. I was just a training partner for guys. Okay? Same with jiu-jitsu. I was a training partner for guys that competed. I don't consider myself a jiu-jitsu fighter, but I do have a lot of friends that are. So Brian Albert, by all accounts, was some sort of a boxer. Was he a competitive boxer? I don't know. Was he a dude that just went and sparred in the gym? I don't know. Did he actually compete? Maybe he did. Maybe they had police boxing now. Who knows? But I don't know. I have heard people refer to Brian as an MMA fighter. I've seen no evidence that Brian Albert was an MMA fighter. Not that it's material. But what it does lead you in, he's the mindset of a guy, and Sean McDonough has brought this up ad nauseum about him beating up other cops, beating up his guys that were on his team, on the fugitive recovery team. He talked about, I believe his name is Eddie Hernandez, but he's brought up guys that Brian has gotten in fights with other cops, and he almost killed by smashing him in the head with a bottle, a Boston fireman. Okay? So those are things that we know, and I trust if Sean tells you that, you can take it to the bank. So So now we're at the house. Now we have John walking in there trying to show that he's not scared, okay? He's not scared of Brian Higgins. So if you're Brian Albert, what type of a scenario do you want to see here? You know, the type of a scenario that you would want to see is if there is going to be a tussle, we're going to go downstairs where I have a gym set up. Did Brian have a heavy bag down there? I don't know. Did he have a speed bag down there? Did he have a place where he could do work on his footwork and his hands? Maybe he did. Maybe he did to have that. I don't know. But he certainly had, by all accounts, he had at least a weight room and some sort of fitness room. So if there's going to be a fight, you're not going to have them fight in your house proper. You're not going to have them fight in the living room or in the kitchen or in the den or in the dining room or in the bedroom or in the bathroom. You're going to have them fight in the basement. Or you're going to see, if somebody wants to fight, go downstairs and have at it. That's what is most likely happened, because we know why Brian Higgins wanted him to go over there, and we know why. And we know that John O'Keefe, why, as a man that's been having a few beers, why he would want to go over there to show, I'm not afraid of you, bro. Okay? I'm here. What are you going to do? I'm not afraid of you, man. So now we have, those are the things that we know leading up to it. We surmise that Brian Albert, considering himself a fighter or a tough guy or a guy who likes to get in fights, that he would want any altercation to occur somewhere out of the main part of his home where stuff can get broken. There's nobody would do that and say, yeah, fight in my living room. If you guys want to face down one another and see what's up, then let's go down to the basement. That's how, obviously, we would end up in the basement. And, of course, Steve Scanlon, this is what he had told to, if, you know, he's to be believed, this is what he had told Yannetti the days after Karen was charged. Now, I want to go to, from there, I want to go to when actually John O'Keefe's body, God rest his soul, when he's found on there. And I want to say, you know, justice for John O'Keefe. And I hope that you get it, man. I really do. Because this is, you know, there you go right there. Free Karen Reed, justice for John O'Keefe. It's awful what happened to this guy. He obviously is a great guy. He's a flawed person like all of us. Who knows, you know, when our eye wanders, who knows, you know, about that kind of stuff. But he suffered loss. He took on those children and treated them like his own. And man, what an awesome guy for doing that. So now I want to get to the part where the police come. So I'm not going to go into the whole thing with the taillight, because you guys have all heard quite a bit about her backing out of the garage on the Ring camera, and she is seen bumping John's his Chevy Traverse, and there goes your cracked taillight. So that happened. Okay, we know that. Now, what I want to talk about is the police coming, and what we're going to go with here, folks, in this thought experiment is we're going to go with the premise that the owner of the house is not a famous Boston police officer, sergeant of the fugitive recovery team, that he is in fact a guy named Lion Smith. We're just going to make up a name, Lion Smith. So now the police arrive at this home, Canton Police, Fire, EMS, and nobody from the home is outside to speak with the investigating officers, who quickly figure out via his wallet that this is Boston police officer, which likely had a badge in it, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Now we have a really serious situation. And the person or persons who own this home, which they're unaware of who that is, what would be likely happen? So now you're an officer on the scene. It's not a famous Canton family, the Albert family that everybody knows where they live, obviously, because the Albert kids grew up there. It had been in that home had been in their family for over 50 years. So with that in mind, going to have the police are going to go knock on the door and go, where is the owner of this home? After they do a very brief interview with the witnesses, which would have been Carrie Roberts, which would have been Karen Reed, which would have been Jen, and they would have tried to figure out what's going on. They would have asked Karen Reed, this is, she would have said, that's my boyfriend. How did he get here? And without a question, she would have said, I dropped him off here last night after midnight, sometime after midnight. There's no question that that would happen. Now we're going to go through the critical thinking exercise. What is the next thing that the Canton police are going to do if they don't know who the owner of this home is, and there's the body that's still alive of a Boston police officer with blacked out eyes, with abrasions over his eyes, across his nose. His eyes were shut and looking like he got beat up. How is that? What is going to be their response? Well, the first thing, and I submit this to you, and I ask you, if you think I'm incorrect about this, and what Tom Finch here is saying, most guys grow up, yeah, and move on from that. No, I'm with you. And thank you so much if you're still watching, Terrelyn. I really appreciate this. We're going to keep doing true crime stuff. We've got a whole investigation that we did that has nothing to do with Karen Reed from missing persons that we're going to present. But being that I just moved and I still got to go get my family, it's going to take some time. Let's go back to the case. The logical thing that the police are going to do if they don't know who the homeowner is, they're going to call the dispatcher and they're going to ask who owns the home, who owns this 34 Fairview. They're going to ask that question if they haven't already been told by dispatch who the homeowner is, who is not outside to greet fire, EMS, police, and a shrieking girlfriend, who would have told the police on scene, I dropped him off here last night. She would have told them that. The next thing that is going to happen that any intelligent, critical thinking human being is going to do is going to go up and go knocking on the door. Can police, would you open the door, please? Ringing the doorbell, knocking on the door. Eventually, the owner of the home, who is not a famous Boston police officer, but it is Mr. Lion Smith. And Lion Smith is going to answer the door eventually and say, hey, what's going on? Oh, we found there is a person incapacitated on your front lawn right there. Guy dying on your front lawn. You know who that is? No, who is it? Oh, well, it's Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Oh, is it? Now, all the events that took place the night before are in play. So the owner of the home, the not famous Lion Smith, and his buddy, Lion Groggins, was also there. But he is also, in this case, not an ATF agent. He's a landscaper. Okay? And they're all out at the bar at the waterfall. So, was he in your house last night? Because they're saying there was some sort of a party here after the waterfall. Were you with him at the waterfall? Yeah, I was with him. He never came in the house. Oh, really? Because his girlfriend over there just told me that she dropped him off here after midnight. And then she waited 10 minutes for him. He didn't come out. And she left and went back to his house. Nope, it's never in the house. Do you mind if we come in and look around? You know what? You're going to have to get a search warrant if you want to come in the house. We're gonna have to get a search warrant. What? You have anything to hide? Anything happen here? Nope, but I'm not letting you in unless you have a search warrant. Okay. We have these units. We're going to stay right here, and we are going to watch this scene, and we're going to call the DA's office. This guy on the front lawn, a Boston police officer, we're going to get a search warrant. We'll get inside this house. So don't disturb anything. You can try, but we will have a team in here, and we will look at this house. We'll get a search warrant. So let's say, 8 hours later, maybe, that someone comes and those officers switch out. Nobody leaves. Nobody comes in, and they have a search warrant. This is where we can end this part of the case right here, because we know at least this aspect of the case, because we know what happens from here. From here, if, John would have passed, God rest his soul, and on the way to the hospital, and they would have called the state police. The state police would have come in. They would have helped them. They would have even bolstered the case for a search warrant, and they would have gotten a search warrant, and they would have gone in that house. And if they went in that house, especially if they had brought a crime scene investigation team, there's no question once they got to that basement, they were going to find blood. And if, even if they would have tried to bleach it out, the luminol, I've seen investigators in CSI units say you can do whatever you want to do. If this kind of blood is spilled, I'm going to find it. I'm going to find a drop of that blood. You can try as you may, get the steam cleaner out for the carpet, whatever you want to do, I'm going to find it. And we all know that the only way to really, with those blood stains, is you can't really get rid of them. You have to replace the carpet. Well, they're not going to be able to do that, I'm afraid. And they will find them in the carpet fibers. They're not going to be able to do that in the span of time that they would have had between when they knocked on the door and when a search warrant arrived. So we know that. So at this point, they would have found it. So let's end that part of the case here, and then we'll move on to the next part of the case. So the next part of the case is they would have, those guys would have been brought down. They would have been put in interview rooms, separated. They would have let those guys stew in those rooms, unable to call everybody. They would have gotten search warrants for the phones. So they would have had Lion Smith's phone, and they would have had Lion Goggins' phone that night. And who knows? They may have even gotten other people's phones. But at least those two, they may have gotten more phones from more people who were in the home, whether it be the wife, whether it be the nephew, whomever was there that they, once they had interviewed and found out, I want to know the name of everybody that was in this house last night. So there would have been that. Then what would have happened is they would have known already that a lieutenant who is now deputy chief of police in Canton lived across the street and had a Ring camera video. And you all know, let's see. So we got something else from Tom here. Tom, I believe the call was already in not to go to the Alberts' home. I think Jen was texting Brian. Yes, no, there's no question. What we're trying to do with this thought experiment here, Tom, is we're trying to establish what would have happened if it was a nondescript Canton resident that owned the home. And so I use the name Lion Smith. Obviously, I'm trying to be tongue-in-cheek here. It could be Tom Jones, who owned the home, but someone to whom the Canton police was not known who owned that home and lived at that address. Because we all know that the Canton police know quite well who owned the home and who lived at that address. So therefore, in order to go through the critical thinking experiment, this thought experiment here, we need to change the identity of the person who owned the home and the other who we believe is a co-conspirator. We have to change those names to see how would the police have reacted if it were those persons. Are you with me? Hopefully everybody's with me now. Let me know something in the comments. If you don't understand, or if you have an opinion about what I'm saying, or you want something clarified, or if you have an alternative idea to what I'm saying. But I'm trying to play this out. So the Canton police, when they arrive after the 911 call by Jen McCabe, which is recorded on Karen Reed's phone, which was in the back seat off of John O'Keefe's voicemail himself. And her very calm voice calling 911, there's a man on the lawn at 34th Avenue, and all that. I know I've practiced that. And trying to distance herself, not saying he's my friend, and all the BS that she was saying in court. And then the second part where she had to do it again because they forwarded her. And then, of course, the part where it seems as though she's saying help is on the way when she dials what was her sister's number. We don't know what her sister said, but it appears that she's saying help is on the way. So if you have a question, comment, please put it up there. If you feel like blessing us, either with a super chat or a cash app, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's also awesome. And we'll get you on. We'll get into it with you here. Let me check Twitter real quick. Okay. All right. So we're good on Twitter. So with all that said, now, what are the next things that the police are going to do? Yeah, if you mean in the real world, not in Kent. The next thing that they would do if they didn't know this homeowner is they're going to already know that the then lieutenant and now deputy chief Kelleher lived across the street. And they're going to just go and knock on his door and say, hey, boss, do you have, and obviously they're going to see that he has a Ring camera. And obviously that lieutenant or deputy chief, whatever he was at that time, is then going to give them the footage that shows Karen Reed pulling up. It shows John O'Keefe getting out. It looks like he's walking toward the door, and then it's going to show her leaving. And it may show him, depending upon the angle of that camera, it also would show him entering the house and not coming out. And it also obviously would show when the Ford Edge pulled up in front of there. It would show Lucky going by. It would show the Ford Edge, and it would show when the Ford Edge was moved and the body was left there. Was in the spot behind where the Ford Edge was parked. So all that would have been on the deputy chief's camera, or it would have been on one of the neighbors' cameras if that canvas of the entire street of anybody whose Ring camera was within a degree angle in which it would capture activities in front of Brian Albert's home, including passing vehicles. Like, I don't know, maybe a passing vehicle that had a right rear tail light that was still intact. Maybe, right? Maybe. So this is the thought experiment that we're doing. So far we've had two major things that would have happened. One thing is no would not have been the answer if they would have found a dead Boston police officer on the lawn. The answer would have been, who are you, sir? Was he in your house? Because I have witnesses 25 feet behind me that have just told me that he was dropped off here and he came in this house. Next thing. Now the police officers go and they pull that video from the waterfall, that which is in the wonderful, wonderful Microdots video. I want to say right now, it says here, can't post comments to some destinations. And first of all, what that means, let me just say it here. I'm just going to... Okay. And what that means is if you are not watching us on YouTube, I would ask you if you would go to our YouTube and watch. And the reason it's good for our metrics. And if you would take the time to just like and subscribe, that would be most awesome, and I would greatly appreciate it. And I will toast you right now, even though it's water, because I'm not feeling that good. But I still want to spend some time with you tonight. So, and we got about 20 minutes left. So the next thing that's going to happen with this not being a Boston police sergeant that owns 34 Fairview, it's just a random citizen from Canton. They're going to go pull that video from the waterfall and they're going to analyze that video down to the nth degree, and then they're going to call these witnesses back to the Massachusetts State Trooper Barracks, and they're going to present that video to a Mr. Goggins and Mr. Linesmith. Or we can use initials BA and BH. Those videos would have been presented to them, and they would have said something like, BH, looks like you're pointing at that at Mr. O'Keefe over there, Officer O'Keefe, and it looks like you are mouthing something to him. And it looks like the Canton Town Selectman is trying to keep you from going over there. You want to tell us about that? And they would have pushed and pushed and pushed, because to us, BH, it looks like you're calling him out to fight. Is that what you're doing? Nah, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not pointing at him. Nope. That's interesting. Were you friends with Officer O'Keefe? And be like, I knew him. Well, that's interesting, because we see you pointing at him, and then a dozen minutes later, you are at the Alberts home, and you're texting Officer O'Keefe, "Are you coming?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. Why were you doing that, BH? Were you wanting to fight Officer O'Keefe? No. That's interesting, because we have text between you and Miss Reed that looks like you were trying to get something going with Miss Reed. Is that right? Do you have any relations with Miss Reed? No? That's interesting, because she told us that you shared a kiss. And then she was trying to kind of to break it off. So what happened? Were you pissed off at John O'Keefe? Were you angry? No, I wasn't angry. Oh, you weren't angry? Then why were you there pointing at him like, hey, MFer, looked like you want to fight him? And then you're asking if he's going to come to Brian Albert's house, and he's not friends with you nor Brian Albert. So why did you do that? So the hole just keeps getting deeper and deeper. And for you, BA, you say he didn't come to the house, right? Nope, never came to the house. Well, we have video that shows him exiting her car and coming in the house that we got from none other than our police lieutenant. Lives right across the road from you. You know Deputy Chief Kelleher? Yeah. He's got a video that shows he did come in your house. So you better start explaining, because things are going to develop here real quickly in a way that you don't really want them to. So now you see, just from this point in the case, how different things look. How different things look. So we had the investigating officers from Canton that never found taillight pieces on the scene. In those pieces were found later and on multiple iterations, but they were not found the day of the accident, which clearly they would have been. And you could have taken a rake. You could have just brought in a space heater, put a tent up, and melted the scene, as those gentlemen from Duty Ron and Ed Wallace. And Ed Wallace said, "Yeah." He goes, "How do you think they process crime scenes in Norway, and in Greenland, and Finland, in Canada, and all these northern tier states, Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, where they get lots and lots of snow? You think they go, oh, it's snowing, let's get out a backpack blower." If anything, you'd be blowing away evidence potentially. You wouldn't do that, and surely the police officers wouldn't have done that. You would go and you would have gotten a tent, and you could have brought in a space heater, and you could have melted the entire third of that lawn with multiple tents, multiple space heaters, and crime scene tape, and everything would have been revealed on the green terra firma that lay below. That's what would have happened. If it was a lay person who owned the home and not an infamous Boston police officer, police sergeant. And we all know this to be true. This is common sense. This is just simple critical thinking skills. This is not DJ, the detective, or DJ who actually, even though I was a law enforcement major, I never became a law enforcement officer. I cannot consider myself not even in the same universe as a real detective and real law enforcement officer. This is just common sense critical thinking that all of you have, even if you have a bias that makes you want to think that she did it because you don't like her. So all we have is fake statements that say, I did it. Whereas Karen Reed said in that interview with ABC, she was asking that in question form because obviously she's freaking out, and she must have been trying to figure out what the hell happened here. Did something happen? Because what would have happened if she was waiting outside, which even Lion Jen says that she was waiting out there, she would have been looking at her phone. She would have been looking at her phone, which is what people do when they're not going anywhere, and waiting for O'Keefe to come out. She would have been looking at her phone and then decided, okay, I've had enough of this, and that's it. I'm out of here. And that obviously, then she could have thought, what if he was in front of my car and I didn't see, everything goes through your mind when you're freaking out like that. She was the only one who was not of sound mind because she really loved this guy despite how many fights they had and how many things went wrong. She loved this guy, and now she was looking at the specter of he was no longer there. And nobody else there cared about John. Only people that would lie under oath and say that he was a dear friend. We all know that that's not true because we're critical thinkers, right? We can look at somebody and we can know when they're fabricating and they're lying. It's pretty obvious. We all have the ability to do that. You all have the ability to do that. So And it was obvious from the way the 911 call, had Karen been making that call, it would have been frantic and crazy. And it's not because she's not of sound mind. It would have been because she loved this guy. Messed up as their relationship was. Just like my relationship with my wife. Sometimes we yell at each other and call each other names, and it's embarrassing. And then you're embarrassed and you apologize. We've been together 21 years. And we're going to be together for the rest of my life. However long that is. Anyway, so critical thinking, you can figure all this out. What would have happened if it were a nondescript Canton resident with whom the police were unfamiliar. The problem is that they were familiar with who owned the home. And therein lies the problem, right, folks? Therein lies the problem. Is because they knew who owned the home, and so things had to go a certain way so as to draw suspicion away from the homeowner. Had it been John Q. Public that owned that home, that's what would have happened. Knock, knock, knock. Knocking on the door. Canton police here. Open up. That's what's happening. That's what would have happened. Open up. Canton police here. I want to talk to you about what happened. What happened out here? Why is there a dead Boston police officer on your lawn? Do you know him? Had you been out with him? What do you know about what we're seeing here? Because witnesses behind me tell me that he came in here. Then we're going to canvass the neighborhood. We're going to pull all the Ring camera video that we can. And according to Aiden Carney, there were a considerable amount of neighbors. I think he went and counted how many people had Ring camera videos. I think he even approached one of the houses. So that's what we have there, folks. That's just, again, I'm not, my plan was not to go through the entire case tonight. My plan was to start at the beginning and go through steps that any logical person who's not impassioned by, I love the police and I'm going to show that this lady did it because that's what they said. And that's just not how we do things, right? That's not how critical thinkers think. And actual people who are trying to discover the truth about something behave. You look at all the facts and say, what makes sense? And as Judge Judy, our favorite television judge, always says, if it doesn't make sense, it's because it's not true. And she's a brilliant woman. She's got over 50 years in the courts watching people lie to her. And it's amazing. It is amazing how many people lie under oath. It's uncanny when you see how many people are willing to lie. Growing up 57 years on this planet, I never had a sense of how easily people lie and will fabricate something and injure another person's life. Well, let me say this. Injure a person's livelihood or life. People will lie and not even bat an eye about it. It takes a certain kind of person to do that because there are people who can't live with themselves if they did something like that. And everybody who critically looks at this case knows what I just said. They know what happened. They know objectively what happened. They know subjectively what they think. And they also know quite clearly what would have happened if the owner of that home was John Q. Public, who was unfamiliar to the Canton police officers, unfamiliar to the Massachusetts State Police Trooper Michael Proctor, and merely just someone who was a neighbor of Tom Kelleher. We all know what would have happened in that case. We know what would have happened. We know that they would have knocked on that door. We know that they would have asked to see inside. We know that a guilty person would have said no. And then, even things like, Microdots put some of the weights from the garage in the sink. And this is what he surmises. This is completely subjective. He surmises that you can see what looks like bleach on the counter and that they would have bleached those weights. Well, if you're putting together a case and you're looking for probable cause and you're looking to create reasonable doubt and things like that, a police officer and police detective would say, hey, BA, usually bleach your weights? Do you usually take equipment from your gym and bring it to this? And I'm not saying this happened. We're surmising here, right? I'm not saying that this actually happened because we don't know that happened. This is just something he's guessing. But just for that sake, this is how they would treat it. Do you usually bleach your dumbbells and your plates from your gym? Is that normal in your house? Oh, no. Yeah. Sometimes we like to keep our weights really clean. You don't want to spread illness between the family. Yeah. It also is something that people tend to use when they're trying to clean up blood. usually what they'll try to do is bleach things. If it's clothing, they'll try to bleach it out or they'll burn it. They'll go and take it and throw it in a dumpster 15 miles away. Something like that. All these things would have come into play. Owner of the home. Oh, if they were, they would have already charged this individual before, because they would have already found all the evidence. So there would not have been a way or a reason for them to try to tear up the basement floor there and have all the floors redone. There's no reason, because they would have already gone in there with the CSI team. They would have turned the lights out. They would have sprayed the luminol. They would have turned on the black light, and they would have seen blood spatters wherever Mr. O'Keefe fell, Officer O'Keefe. So that is not in question. That all would have been discovered before they had a chance to get rid of Chloe, before there was a chance to get rid of cell phones, because they would have gotten the phones before there was an opportunity to put the home up and sell it $60,000 below market value. All of those things would have occurred they would have been in that house within 24 hours. They would have gotten a warrant. There's a dead Boston police officer on your lawn. The owner of the home says he was not inside. We have a witness. We have a witness. The girlfriend of the deceased officer says she dropped him off and watched him walk in the damn house. Case closed. Now you find the blood. Then we can back it up. Then we can start pulling. Then we pull the waterfall video. Then we get all the ring cameras, including from the deputy chief. All those get pulled. We've got her driving up. We've got him walking in the house, and he doesn't come out. Then mysteriously, the snow starts. We have that, and then we have a Ford Edge being pulled up. We don't see anything else. I don't know. Maybe the Ford Edge was used to shield activities from people's ring cameras. Not that would happen, right? And then as soon as that Ford Edge leaves, there's a body there. And that also potentially could be on a ring camera footage. But the individual driving that car, we don't know who that is. Turtle Boy tell you that all the time. Don't know who was in that Ford Edge. But they could have seen who was in that Ford Edge. Potentially, or at least got a really good look at who it was. And maybe a description that they could then cross-reference against video like at the waterfall. Clothing, perhaps. It depends. But you could certainly get a sense of things. You could certainly see that there was no body there, and then there was body there. How'd that happen? So just doing thought experiment, using critical thinking skills and logic. I know there's a content creator out there that says that all the time, but these are the kinds of things that they don't do. This is what would have happened if the owner of 34 Fairview was John Q. Public, not a famous police officer, not the brother of a selectman, not the brother of a Canton Police Department detective. That's what would have happened. And then the case is solved. So, unless the feds have something that shows that, then I think the most that we can hope for, I don't know that we can hope that justice for John O'Keefe will be served. And put that up there. We don't know that we're going to get justice for John O'Keefe. I pray that we will, because I don't know that the feds have that evidence that could implicate whomever is responsible for that fight that would more overwhelmingly likely have happened in the basement of the home, but certainly somewhere within the confines of the home. And then the body would have been placed outside. And so I don't know if we'll get justice for John O'Keefe, but we can hope to free Karen Reed. That, as a minimum, we can hope for. And I do. So with that, we'll cut it off here for tonight, everybody. I want to thank you so much for joining me and having a watch. If you have comments, please hit me up on Twitter. You can see my handle there at Call All Beings. We do a couple different genres of shows, but one of them is obviously True Crime Unsolved. And boy, that's what we have right here with Karen Reed. True crime that is not solved. Case that was not made. Next week, you will see Sean McDonough, the supervisory DEA agent at Leopardo8 on Twitter X. Sean will be here. Thank God he confirmed today. That will be great for us because we don't have a legal analyst. So Sean is going to play law enforcement and legal analyst. And what we do on these Calling All Beings roundtables is everybody will be required to bring a topic, a question, or a hypothesis to the group. So you'll bring that, and then everyone in a circular format will have an opportunity to answer or speak to that topic, question, or hypothesis. We will then have some free discussion, and we will catch your comments in the chat. So joining Sean will be the first member whom we built this around. So I usually do this because I don't want to necessarily feature one person over another. It's a blessing that any one of these people want to come on with me or us. In this case, Courtney won't be here this week. She's going on a little birthday trip. And as far as our show, we have a guy that we call him Money Nathan. He is at A Waif Soul on Twitter X. He is the one who creates everything you see here. And makes Cab for 3 years look the way it does. So, once again, joining Sean, the first person who we built this roundtable around was the great Mark Mazzamedia. We need the feds to come through. Great show. Great show. Thank you. By the way, UFC big fight tonight. Oh, okay. I'll check who's on UFC tonight. I hadn't seen who it is. Put it in the chat. If you would, Tom, who's fighting tonight? I used to cover UFC. It's how I started podcasting, and kind of like getting Sean right out of the box, the first interviews I ever did in MMA was Clay Guida and Donald Cowboy Cerrone at a local event were the first two interviews I ever did in MMA. So I don't start small. I start big, and I will go after the big fish and say, hey, would you like to talk to me? And I can't even tell you how many UFC fighters, coaches that I interviewed over the years. It was really just the way they were treating the fighters made me decide not to support the UFC anymore. But I love the fighters and the competitors, and they're amazing people, both the men and the women. And I mean, I had UFC fighters stay at my house. I mean, I can't even go into all of my connections with the UFC over the years. So, Mark Mazzamedia, who you know as at Mazzamedia. Izzy versus Duplessis. Oh, great. So this is going to be a middleweight bout. Israel Adesanya from, I think he's from Australia or New Zealand. And Duplessis is, he's a European. Oh, actually, I think he's from Australia also or New Zealand. So Kiwi or Aussie, so forgive me, but thank you. So anyway, yeah, it's going to be Sean, but who we built this around was Mazzamedia. And then Nurse Kim decided that she would join us. And then I met a woman from Australia. Thank you very much, D-Mart. I appreciate you, brother or sister. I'm going to say brother, though, because if you got a name D-Mart, you probably are a brother, male, and not female. A lady from Australia, she is true crime kangaroo named Lily, and she contacted me and said we should get together and talk. South African. Oh, thank you. Duplessis is South African. Thank you, brother. Lily, she had on Sean, I believe. I know somebody had on Sean. I believe it might have been Miss Shorty. But anyway, both of them are coming on. Both the Aussie ladies will be on. So we'll have 3 guys and we'll have 3 ladies. You're female. All right. Well, thank you, D-Mart. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. I had one of my mission commanders when I was in the Air Force, when I was in Air Force Special Ops was Kmart. So I love those kind of names. My name, DJ, is an Air Force nickname. My real name's back in home in New York. They call me Dave. And even when I go home to Massachusetts, go to Dean, my nickname there was Kazoo, which is a whole nother story. And they also alternatively will call me Dave. So yeah, it's an honor to be a Dave. But DJ is a Air Force construct, and now I keep it because I'm known in the industry, in aerospace industry. I'm known as DJ, so I just kept that as my professional name, I guess. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you next Saturday night with Sean, with Mazza, with Nurse Kim, with Lily from True Crime Kangaroo, and with Miss Shorty. So there'll be 6 of us total, and we should have a great round table. Everybody's going to be required to bring a topic. It won't be just a free-for-all. They're going to have to ask a question to the group. It's how we do it. It's how the cab roundtables have been done for 3 years. And that way, everybody gets equal time. Everyone will have to comment on everyone else's topic, and everyone else will have everyone will have a question that they'll get to hear everyone's opinion on. So I also will have to come with a topic. So anyway, thank you so much. Love you guys. I appreciate the support, and we look forward to seeing you next Saturday night. One love, peace out, as we always say on cab. Oh, let me get my fingers in here, oh boys. Peace out. One love. We'll see you down the road. And we always wonder what's up around the bend.